Good evening, everybody. Thursday night, February 6th, 2025. We're here to do some soothsaying, I guess, because
Absolutely.
we appreciate AI, and now Nico's making it hard for everybody. I gotta keep up with AI, and now he's building a bunch of cool stuff that I can't miss any more episodes, that's for sure. Else I'm gonna be like, there's gonna be five more tools next time. How you doing, man?
Doing well, sir. Doing very well. Um, yeah, very happy, very excited. Um, Put together the site this week. Not that it's anything crazy. I don't. It's kind of funny, like having to put it together. Even in the first place, I was like, yeah, I don't know that you really need multiple pages anymore, right? Like if you can't get the merit of what you're trying to do out, like it's kind of it's a decently long one pager. Um, but it's got everything you need in the one page at the same time. I've got enough steps to go through it or whatever. So I don't know. That was kind of interesting because I was so stuck in the old school of like, oh man, I don't have like there's no other pages that I could drive people to, and I don't have a contact us or like an about me or anything. And it's like, yeah, but just write it in there, right? Like just treat it like a story and just start to finish instead of like doing it, page by page by page. Um,
Yeah, I feel
and
you.
yeah,
Like this is why SEO conversations are uh, like interesting and frustrating at the same time. It's like it's another place, and I'm so happy to see recently. Oh, now I'm blanking on his name. Mr. Whiteboard, Whiteboard Fridays.
oh,
Uh, wow,
Anton,
from Maz.
oh,
Uh, anyways, SEO guru, but one of the like best ones. Like
mm,
I think most people would agree. Finally, starting to say like this is how it works with AI and GPT. Like this is the difference between. He was using it. It was a great example because he was using his bio
mm,
that is printed all over the internet because when he does work with people, like it's got to be this way. So he can put in that phrase in Google and guaranteed those all of that stuff comes up. And he does the same thing in in GPT, I think it was, and
mm,
it wasn't until he added like one more word because that's the only place that that order of words happens, like on the internet.
right.
And the whole concept was like about how like these word, um, the idea of like it's always AI is trying to generate like the next best, whatever they think, whatever it's gonna, whatever is most likely to be the next thing,
Yeah.
right? And uh, meanwhile, like just people aren't SEO like you say, like we know traffic's down, we know social and other places are like where people are choosing to get information and do research and honestly get things done in a lot of ways now,
Mm,
because it's human to human contact, and AI is coming in. So I don't know how you can look at that topic in the same way. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. And what you're saying makes a ton of sense, and I agree because then you just turn websites like are no longer an organic tool.
mm,
So specifically for outbound support, right? Like you're in the middle of a conversation. Here's my website. Like
yeah.
here's where you transact. Here's where you get the value. But they're almost never gonna get there, like on their own. And if it is, it's like, oh, LinkedIn activity. Here's a link. No, no. But that's always been. That's how it's always been, right? Like every oh man, with like
I
Google
mean,
Ads and stuff like that, like page visits, like number of page visits after doing that
mm,
is very rarely more than two,
right,
right? It's
right.
like so
I mean, look, you also have to take a look at, we ask, a lot of this also revolves around philosophy and psychology more than anything else. So you also have to take a look at what we've sort of done to society at the same time, right? And the way in which we have shortened our attention span, shortened the amount of time that we want to spend on any one particular thing at any one particular time. And that ends up resulting in, right? Like people are talking about, like, how do we get them to spend more time on the page? How do we get them to spend more time on the site? Good luck, man. I don't know. Like,
You don't.
most people, it's hard to get people to spend time on a 30-second TikTok video, right? So, like, if you're talking about like attention, that's what you're up against. If you're trying to hardball it, right, with the cold approach. Otherwise, what you can do is become part of that person's like natural, place, space in which they are in, right? I mean, I know that people advertise all the time about like, oh, it's about being in the right place at the right time with the right message. And it's like, yeah, it kind of is. If you want to, like, that is the perfect way of saying, like, miracles can happen. Like, that's what you might as well be saying that. Like, that's the, I don't understand how that, like, actually helps. I don't know how that helped to sell anything for any business by saying that phrase. But at this point in the game, it's not even a matter of like the right piece of content. It's, are you actually, do you care about what it is that you're actually doing? I can tell you right now, like, people who do care. I was listening to an older video from Steve Jobs, and he was talking about this was from 1988, 89, and he was talking about the disconnect between people who design and develop products versus people who design and run companies. And he said that the great disconnect is that as soon as you start pushing the product people out of the room because you think that they're getting in the way of you making money, that's the point at which you have created the disconnect between you and your customer. Because now you don't care about the product that you're making anymore. You've pushed it out of the room. You've said it's no big deal, right? That has to stop, basically. All that old school stuff has to go away. You have to actually make your brand and what you're doing mean something now, right? And
Yeah.
then in the breadth of
No,
AI, it's like, I think, yeah, I was literally just talking to you about this, right? Like before we got on, the fact that, and I was talking to my wife about this earlier, like, this is why, like, people, you talk about, like, oh, I don't understand, like, why these things are shaping up to be the way that they are. It's all an evolutionary process, and it's all a reactionary process. And especially when it comes to marketing, you have to understand that there are very few, like maybe 5 to 10% of marketing firms that are proactive and able to like get out in front of the trend or set the trend. The other 90% are reactive. So that's just a tidal wave in the making, right? Of stuff that you're going to see. It's no differently than, when a song becomes popular on the radio, now you're going to hear it all summer, right? So
yeah.
right now it's very much the same thing. People are getting pushed into the direction of like AI, 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 and even I'm working on some awesome new projects and starting to roll some stuff out for people. But it's not. I can tell you right now, like even the projects that I'm working on, it's about the content, it's about the purpose, it's about the use case. It's not about, hey, let's get this in place so that we can save you some money, or hey, let's get this in place because it's a cool new toy. It's, hey, I have a business, but I don't have a support team and I need one. And that revolving door is just continually spinning and I can't get somebody to sit still. What can we do to solve this problem? Okay, that's a use case where I can step in with AI and I can find you somebody that's not a revolving door that's going to sit there and answer 500 calls at once, right? But that's
Yeah.
the that's the evolution, right? But and that's not, and I'm not talking about a business who that has, again, like this isn't a business that has a call center, has a support team. They don't, right? So this is like entrepreneurial level stuff, and the costs are coming down tremendously, man. Like practically every episode that we have, there's a new cost saving model out there. I mean, like from the last time, um, I can't quite remember. To be honest, time is a very fickle thing anymore.
Yeah.
um,
January 30th,
okay,
1 week ago.
it seems so strange. I don't know why. Um, yeah, well, I mean, it, what am I saying? I don't know why. It seems so strange because since then, what's happened, right? So, and I was just talking to someone else about this recently. I don't think people take into account. So I'll probably try to repeat it as often as I can. I don't think people take into account like just how fast the evolution is happening.
Nope.
We're just over 2 years in, right? Like 2 years, and let's just be nice and say 2 years and 2 months. And in 2 years and 2 months, we've had GPT 3, 3.5, which was actually an improvement on 3, 4, 4 Turbo, which was actually an improvement on 4, 4.0, which was a massive improvement on 4 Turbo. Or shouldn't say 4 Turbo, I'm sorry, 4 Mini. Then oh 01, and now oh 03. 3, 3.5, and 4, you could argue, but I would say 3 and 3.5 basically was about a year's time. So 4, 4.0, oh 01, oh 03 in 1 year. Now, technically, that's cheating because 4 was done training at the time that 3 released. So if I want to be really fair, I could still say that somewhere in the ballpark of 4 models, 3 of which you've seen, and 1 is still behind closed doors. I don't know if anybody's paying attention. Anybody see strawberries yet? I don't, but it's in there. The thing that I have been talking about is there. There's no two ways about it. Like if it's not there, it is so close to being there. I'm willing to bet that Sam spends every waking moment at that company, right? Like I know I would. I would. It would be very difficult to get me to leave every day because it's just I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. And all the demos still continue to speak to Strawberry in one way or another. But let's get past that. So had oh 03 come out, right? And oh 03 was basically a response to DeepSeek. And for anybody that's still on the DeepSeek train for whatever reason, I'm not sure why. I have yet to have anyone, even like I've looked at Ethan Mollick's stuff. I haven't found a single person that was like, oh, you got to check out what DeepSeek did. Not a single person. For all the people that are out there talking about how powerful this model is, how comparable it is to OpenAI, and how comparable it is to Claude, I haven't seen a single shit post. Not one. And it's just weird to me because it's like if this thing is so good, why there should be tons and tons of videos of how amazing this thing is, right? But there really aren't. So, in answer to that, essentially was them releasing oh 03. I would have thought for sure that that would have poked the bear over at Anthropic, but unfortunately, I guess not hard enough yet. So we end up with oh 03 Mini and oh 03 Mini High. Oh 03 Mini High is on par with oh 01, except that the cost of it is insanely cheaper. That's the best description I can give you. Chris actually showed me this not long ago, and it's a basically it's like it's a all in one, right? It's like a good all in one for using any sort of GPTs or something like that.
Was that
What?
Nano?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and see, just so that people can see like what the cost difference is on this stuff, right? So, oh 01 Pro is 35 cents a prompt, right?
Which
I
is a
know,
lot.
yeah, I know some of you guys think that like, oh, that's 35 cents, not a big deal.
It's a
Okay,
lot.
really, really big deal, especially when you consider that like, what was it? Amazon's is 8/100ths of a penny. Somebody in here is like 1/1000th of a penny. Well, yeah, of course, and then there's others that are like literally. I think Nanos is free. But so okay, so you have oh 01 Pro. It's at 35 cents. Gemini 2 latest release, 1/100th of a penny, which is kind of like on the average for most of these. Gemini 2 Pro, and then oh 03 Mini, just 1 cent. by comparison to 01 Pro. Yeah, I don't know what the X is on that, but that's how X less it is, right? Even
35.
right, right. Like even 01 at 25, right?
Yeah.
So it's literally it's actually I don't know if that's technically less expensive or not. I guess if you round it up, technically 03 would be cheaper than 40.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think like you mentioned the speed.
Oh
Um,
God, yeah.
and of course, like my context go to is pretty easy to be HubSpot usually. And we talk about like, the more you do in HubSpot, the easier it is to get the ROI. You just got
Hmm.
start getting the whole teams and you just start building. That's what's happening. And here, and it's like the faster the leaders go, it's just the wake
Yep.
behind them just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And everybody that is doing stuff is teaching the leaders because they're all using the leader stuff.
Yep.
Like, so it's just like, why would we hit a wall? Like, it makes no sense.
No.
Like, right? And we're clearly not. Um, and that's where, like, when you also know that they've been working on this stuff like years before they actually launch it.
Yeah.
Um, it's clear. It's where like the competitive environment helps us out because maybe we get stuff a little bit faster than was planned.
Yeah.
But that's where it's like the way that like it was in the pocket clearly, like for him to be able to rack that quickly, like to drop it like that, and then have it be so clear on the cost effectiveness, and it's like yeah, we've been working on that too. It just wasn't a priority yet, but
Right.
okay, you guys think it is now. All right, we'll give it to you.
But
Oh, everybody's worried about cost effective AI now. Okay, here you go.
that's the hilarity to me. And that's
Right?
what kills me, right? Is like you'll give it to like people will turn around and give it to China. So like what I call this, and it's funny because I've talked to Claude about this ad nauseum. This is what Claude and myself call white knight syndrome. I know that there's another meaning to it elsewhere, but um, in this context in particular, it's that American society, for whatever reason, has grown to the level that it cannot help but try to find somebody high up on a horse to tear down for whatever reason, right? And like we don't care, like we really don't care what the reason is. We just don't want something to be too good, and or for some reason, like we almost like we don't want ourselves to be the best at something. I'm not entirely sure. I really don't know, honestly, but I just thought that it was ridiculous that out of nowhere, the whiff of a rumor of a Chinese model. It wasn't state model. It wasn't the government that built the model. It was a private company that built the model. I'm sorry. It was a private company that cloned the model, is what they did. And yeah, like that was somehow huge breaking news and just, oh my God, disrupting markets and all this stuff. OpenAI drops O3, which is just a magnanimously efficient version of the highest level reasoning model possible. Crickets. So Sunday rolls around, and I'm not sure that I don't. People aren't taking this one too seriously, and that's fine. I don't care. We tried to warn you. We've been talking about it forever now, and the summer is like the reckoning, as far as I can, as far as I can tell. Um, Deep research dropped on Sunday, and if you're wondering what that is the equivalent of having an entire R&D department. I didn't stutter, I didn't stammer. There's not something else I'm going to say. That's it. If you were looking to like I'm not even joking. I'm not downplaying this. If you were looking to create an R&D department for whatever it is that you wanted to do, you have one now, and it will cost you $200 a month. That's it. When we talked about zero cost development environments and zero cost production environments, we weren't joking. We were not joking. Me and Chris literally play on the side developing bots for all types of shit. Proposal writers. I've got two that are just back to back. I call them the Wonder Twins. One writes API codes, the other one writes custom coded workflow actions. They both one shot both of them just upon request. Does not matter, right? Because they're so well trained. I mean, they're like, I don't know, 300-400 like 300-400 conversations in now, right? Um, it's it's that kind of stuff that like it starts making you more than just one person. Immediately starts like carving hours out of your day, right? In terms of what it is that you're doing, in terms of limitations by software don't exist anymore. Limitations by planning don't exist anymore. Limitations by intelligence don't exist anymore. Yeah,
That's the definition of augmentation. Like, and that's where like, if you choose not to like put the suit on, like, sorry, like everybody who does is just gonna be better.
Yep.
Like, yeah, man, it's
I want to play. So, if you guys subscribe to OpenAI, then you've noticed that they've been like dropping little videos all day today. All I think like a couple this past week, but definitely all day today, and just sort of as the best way I can describe it is like preparing people. I think for like what this actually is going to look like. Um, this one I thought is not even joking when I say this is the most effective one. Um, I say that because it just struck such a chord for me. Uh, my wife and I watch ridiculous reality shows, one of which is those like deep sea fishing shows.
okay.
One of them happened to be, well, one of them was like the crab fishing show, and the other one was like this like marlin catching show. I don't know. Like they're ridiculous shows, but you watch them, they're entertaining. And naturally, as soon as I'm like start watching it, I'm like, see, like I couldn't do this. Like these guys are too old. Like I don't understand any of this shit because I would just be throwing down like sonars and throwing down like IR readers and stuff. Like there's no way I would be sitting there like, based on the sundial, it looks like it's gonna be a good crap day today. Like I'm not doing that, right? Like I'm not gonna guess at it. I gotta make money. So I was telling Laura, I'm like, yeah, look, if it was me and I was doing this kind of stuff, there's not a snowball's chance in hell I wouldn't be out there with some type of tech, some type of AI helping me do whatever it is that I was doing. I'd be destroying all of those guys in like whatever the haul was going to be, right? And then of course you end up being like the asshole of the group, all because you decided to bring the brains to the party, right? So in that vein, I give you this wonderful advertisement from OpenAI.
Well, I'm out here fishing, not catching anything. So I had an idea. Let's just get AI to take care of it all for us. Here it comes. Whoa! My name's Adam Urino. I basically go fishing for a living. As long as I can remember, I always loved fishing, and it was mostly my dad would take me almost every weekend. If we could go fishing, he would take me and teach me how to tell, like, if you have a fish on or if you're just stuck on a rock. Yeah, so I always tell people, like, every time you go out fishing, whether you catch fish or not, you always learn something. Like, if you didn't catch anything, maybe you just learned what doesn't work. Old fishermen especially would hold their secrets or their knowledge tight to their chest. And so I was curious if I like use ChatGPT, what kind of knowledge it could give me. And I was surprised not only how detailed the information that it gave me was, but how accurate it was. Different baits I can use, different water depths, all this information that it would take years to figure out on your own, a lot of trial and error.
Where are the best places right now to get halibut?
This is a lady that's working behind the counter at the bait shop where he has clearly explained what he's doing, and she likely doesn't believe a word coming out of his mouth. So she's actually just asked that to chat. He's got his phone out on the counter.
For California halibut in the Bay Area, some great spots include the Berkeley Flats, Paradise Cay, and the South Bay. These spots tend to be productive, especially if you're drifting live bait or bouncing jigs along the bottom.
And she was shaking her head saying, "Yep, that's right. Yep."
Like it took the information right out of your brain.
Yeah, there's air in here, but yeah.
No. I want to catch Dungeness crab in the Bay Area. What type of gear do I need? Crab traps, crab cage, all this stuff. All right, first one, going down. Yeah, there's crab. Holy smokes, two keepers. That's what we're looking for right there. It cut down a lot of the guesswork. So if you're like really stumped on something, like use these tools to your advantage. Easier said than done, but don't give up. Like I said, every time you go out there, even if you don't catch anything, you're still learning something.
In the end there, I couldn't tell if he was saying easier said than done about using GPT or about going to catch the crab.
Oh man, I
mean,
like the angle.
Yeah.
This is yeah, normal everyday stuff. Like, because obviously the tech world is so good at just completely like disregarding like 80% of the country and what they care about, right? So talking about fishing, I'm curious how that stuff resonates though, right? Because it's still like we've always said, like she wasn't gonna believe him until like
Until he
she's
did it.
hitting a button,
Dude, it's
and
magic,
she's
bro.
engaging, right?
We're in Thor times, man. Like that's what's so really really crazy to me is that there are people like all around you guys. There are people who have no clue. Like you're listening to a show or you're watching us, you are in such a small percentage still. Such a small percentage. And the fact that like if you're keeping up with us, you are in an even smaller percentage. I mean, it gets exponentially smaller the more stuff you know about this subject at this point, right? There is I'm already feeling like a really large sort of separation slash pushback in a sense. I think that corporate America is going to kind of help to like push that back a little bit because the adoption rate obviously is going to pick up, so people are going to kind of just be forced into working with this, which is fine because that also means that it'll start taking more of a natural form, right, in terms of how we interact with it too, because it'll have to be versatile for everybody. So kind of works to everybody's advantage. But yeah, I mean, look, the long and short of it is exactly what Demis Hassabis was saying months ago, which is the cost of education is going to become the cost of intelligence is going to become free for everybody at a high level, right? And once you have that, being that person that knows stuff doesn't mean anything anymore. I know it's going to take so much time to wrestle with that because that's all we have ever really like done and aspired to in a sense as people is to know stuff about what it is that either we do or the world around us or whatever it might be. But it's really like a lot about knowing stuff, right? And I know more stuff than you do. Job security is pretty much dependent upon knowing stuff, right?
In a lot of cases, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
for a
that's
very
where it's like
giant sect of people. That's
right. Well, that's why I'm so excited. Like so much of the gray area, and like the negotiators of the world, and just um, like ever since I went to a trade show in October, I started kind of formulating this idea. Like, if especially when it comes to like pricing on websites and people who still don't want to do that because they manage margin during the conversation, like when everybody can just ask the thing in their pocket, what the price should be.
Yep.
No more negotiation. Like, at least I should say, like, negotiation in bad faith. Let's say that.
Right.
Because there's always negotiation, like, oh, you get more of this value, like more value. How do we pack it in and like make a better deal for you? But like getting over on people is not going to be about like the actual knowledge. It's going to be, you can only do that if they don't know that they have perfect information in their pocket.
Right.
And that's not going to take very long.
End of this year is
Who was I
probably gonna be
with?
the end of that.
All right, who was I with? Somebody. Tony Dowling was telling me, like, this use case of like at some point, like, because we are creative and inquisitive and lazy and all the things where we try to take the shortest path, our brains are built to make things as easy and calorie less as possible. That will bring you to AI at some point.
Yeah.
Because you cannot escape it, right? That's the only silver lining of like deep whatever, is that the more you're exposed to it, at some point you're like, let me see if AI can do this.
Yep.
Right. And we're talking about, I'm hearing stories of like people can't even wait 5 minutes for a response. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, and it only takes the one time. Like, if I'm tired of waiting 2-3 minutes and then I go over to Hub Helper Harry, for example, and it solves the problem, guess where I'm going from now on?
Right.
Like, that's it.
Right.
And that's just like the problem solving scenario. We're seeing it with like solution building, software building, just like handling everything. That's where like that can only happen because there is this perfect information like setup so that I know I can go to this place and I don't need to know everything about everything because this thing does. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing I can think of is like whenever, like, after you get really good at Googling and like you go to the store and you like forgot your phone and like every 10 seconds you're like, I want to Google this, I'm going to Google this, I'm going to Google this because I don't need to know any of these
Yeah.
things anymore. Now it's like, oh, it's just a different level and it's exciting. Like, how can you not get excited about this? Like, that's
I
the
don't know,
crazy
man.
part, dude.
I don't know. It's really tough, and it's like, to me, what we're doing now is just like, it's such kid level stuff. Like, we're still sitting at a desk, like typing into a box, right? Like that. Believe me when I say it, like that's kid level stuff to me, right? Um,
Yeah. I mean, we
Somebody
were
would ask me
talking.
like, "How did you get into this stuff like altogether?" I have the same answer every time, like Blade Runner. Every time, there's nothing you can't. I mean, at least back then, you couldn't show us a movie like that. You couldn't show me a movie like that and then tell me, "Yeah, that's not going to happen in the future." Forget it. That's all my brain was fixated on for decades. Was like, oh man, people were talking about like, oh, flying cars in Back to the Future. Is like, dude, that was in Blade Runner. They had flying cars. What? You didn't need Back to the Future for that. I guess you weren't paying attention. Like, so that's what falling asleep looks like, right? In terms of like missing out on when the first representation of that was on film. Anyhow, I shouldn't say first representation, but first major. So yeah, what's crazier is that, again, we're only in the beginning still. Even though it seems like we're pretty far in, it's really only the beginning. Once we actually hit that arc of AGI, it's gonna be a whole other ball game. And just yeah, like I don't know that There's enough of a demo in here. But yeah, it's only 2 minutes. Bear with it, guys. You can do it. I believe in all of you. It's not going to be the end of the world, I promise.
So you start up with a question and you might not know anything about it. And then you put your researcher's hat on and you're like, let me think about this a bit more. Where can I go look? Well, my name is Reem Anshasi. I am a director in the Research and Data Services Department in Bain, San Francisco. Good research to me is being able to deliver the latest.
Anybody know who Bain and Company is? Nope. But they're using deep research, so whoever they are up against, good luck.
Data, the most credible data. It's difficult because the research topics have become much more niche. And that's why we continuously innovate to make sure we're capturing all these nuances. I got access to deep research. And what I liked about it is that it really is trying to understand what the requester needs, even down to like, what geographies are you looking at? What industries are you looking at? All these tools can help enhance that. This week, I've been working on the semiconductor chip shortage. I want to understand the underlying reasons and which industries were affected the most and what the outlook will be for the next few years. So I put in a prompt. I asked it to look at industry publications, consulting briefs, publicly available data, as well as data from semiconductor associations. It summed up rather quickly what the underlying causes were and provided some context. And if you hover over the source, you can see that it leads you to a website. It will give me a very holistic view. And I'm excited because I can do it much faster now. I think alongside ChatGPT, AI, deep research, these kind of tools increase my personal capacity so that I can use my time doing other research tasks. For me, that is the joy of research, staying curious and always keeping an open mind and learning.
Yep. So, that cost analysis that you might have to do that you're not quite sure about because you've never priced it out for that industry or that type of client or whatever it might be, or maybe that particular thing. I'm sure it's been done somewhere. And if only you had the time to go look it up and do the cross comparisons and make the tables and pull it all together. But you don't. But you do for $200.
See, this is the interesting part, because I still get requests for consulting, people they're doing research like this, and these companies go and find experts in the field, and you can sign up to do an hour for $250 an hour is what I get for material science related stuff, equipment. And that's the thing, that's 1 hour for that cost to try and get insights from one person, right?
For one thing.
But that's where, when I was on the inside of these companies, are they going to do anything with the data? That's the part where humans, this last piece, we talk about consulting, coaching, why we're here right now, helping you transition, because you're going to have to transition. You need help because of that dynamic where it doesn't matter if it's staring you right in the face, of what exactly you need to do. It's black and white, move to the left, because if you stay where you are, you're going to get smashed, and people wait to get smashed before they move to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are better than others to say oh, I know it's overwhelming, but this is the piece of data that I know is going to resonate with you. So let's dig in until you get it, and then you move left. Right. And so as I'm thinking about it and kind of talking through it out loud, if we've got perfect information and it's not about knowing more, it's more about like how to navigate knowledge
How to do
and
more with it.
how to apply it, right?
Mhm.
That's what humans can help humans with. Um, because most of that's just helping each other process the information. Like it doesn't matter if you have perfect information if you don't know what the hell to do with it or what it means to you in your situation. And that's where basically until we can get the the AI just right right in here where it can do that,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is coming. Like, but we got time probably.
I mean, yeah, I think we've got like, I think on that front, we're probably within. I mean, so like, were we talking like functional level where like full symbiotic?
Yeah. I guess when I
That's like
say that, it's like
20
there's
years.
something like the thing that I have to actively do right now to
Mm-hmm.
engage Claude or GPT.
Uh-huh.
Like I no longer, like I don't have to take action. Like it's just happening,
And yeah, like I want that tomorrow. Um,
right?
I
Like,
tried that with with advanced GPT actually earlier. Tried a couple different methods, and oddly enough, the if you I didn't I don't know why I would think this. It's so strange. I'm gonna have such a hard time like when there's a fully off the chain one of these things. Like it's just gonna be a conversation forever. Um, but I was like, oh, okay, well maybe I can fool it because I'm talking to it in English. So maybe if I just have a conversation in a different language, it wouldn't respond because it doesn't think that I'm talking to it, right? Nope. Started speaking right back to me in Greek, no problem. Like didn't skip a beat, and I was just like, all right, well, cool, yeah. Um, but there is that element to it, right? That like I'm not gonna lie, I really actually love the fact that um, you can actually kind of like launch it, like have it in like video mode, lock your phone, and it's still like ever present.
I'm here if you need any help. Feel free to ask.
Can you see what I'm looking at right now?
It looks like you're showing me a room. I can see some orange decorations on the wall and a guitar in the background. Is there anything specific you'd like to focus on?
No, that's okay.
No worries at all. Let me know if there's anything else you want to chat about or anything I can help with.
Sure thing.
You're welcome.
Um, oh yeah, you know what? That's true. But that's still a manual thing. I can, you can mute it and then unmute it so that it would still be active, but it's still. I'm nitpicking at stuff that is like, just yeah, I know.
well, that's the connectivity piece, right? Like
Yeah,
that's where like the intelligence is already, well past anybody's because it's not just about like getting the answers right. It's about accessing all the damn information like in
yeah,
seconds, right? Which is usually the reason you get answers wrong because you don't see all the context or there's a gap in the knowledge or right. And that's right. So once we get to the connectivity mode
mm,
where it's just like thinking alongside, like that's, and I have to think like, so everybody's getting exposed um, to like these chat, software interfaces, basically. Like once the physical, robots start hitting,
I
that's when
mean,
it's learning in 3D at that point, or 4D, or like however you want to refer to it. It's like the
right.
last
Well,
dimension
physical
that it
AI
needs to
is
learn
already a
in.
thing.
Right.
So like that's what's crazy, right? Is I think a lot of people are also asleep on the fact that like it's in all directions, guys. It's not just the generative stuff. It's the robots, it's the materials, it's everything. It's literally everything around you is starting to be modified in one way or another. Maybe it's the design process, maybe it's the way that something's working. If you're going to sit there and tell me no, then you also have to explain to me how nearly every single company that implemented AI on some level showed minimum 20% profit last year over year. You can't tell me that that's like, oh, well, it's just placebo. No. No, it's not. We're talking about trillions of dollars. Hell no. Um, so yeah, I don't hear any company where we heard a lot of hype. It's all hype. It's so much hype. I don't hear any of that shit now. I don't hear a single word because it's not. Because all the people that were sitting there talking about that it was hype were the same people who just weren't doing anything. Or in worst cases, were doing something while talking about not doing anything. Um,
Yeah.
you are Goldman Sachs. Never gonna let you guys live that down. Never. Like I just can't. That was the worst.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's where there should be indicators. Like if you knew what Bain and Company did, like that's why they're all over it.
yeah,
Like because they're better than you
yeah,
at figuring out like how to solve problems and do research. So like if there was like a space for any question, companies like that would be able to prove the space
hmm
exists. But if they're making the choice, like market leader, like they just they've already figured this game out. Like that's why they're so far ahead.
right.
And when they jump on tools like this, um, it's just like, why would you? Yeah, just now,
Like the
at
people
least
who
like you
aren't,
say, people are not questioning it as far
yeah,
as whether it's real or not. Not now you can't feel it until you start using it, right?
yeah.
And that's where um I don't know like what it's gonna get everybody to jump uh in,
I
but
mean, I think that we're not too far away. I don't know what to tell you, because my timeline looks so effed up right now. Um, only because like I don't know what to tell you. Look, if you're in my head,
uh-oh.
a lot of this stuff becomes meaningless because in like 3 or 4 years, like the thing will be around. Now, I've been poking about and asking other models their opinions on this. Um, I wish I had pulled it aside because it would have been useful now. But I was thinking about it, and in all the testing that's been going on, and the way that all the models have been reacting, they've all reacted the way that I would expect them to, which again, like so, this explains why I have this view, guys. You have to understand that what we're doing is essentially instantaneously birthing something that knows a lot of shit about us, right? Even stuff that a lot of us have chosen to forget, however you want to put it. Even those of us who just don't even remember the stuff that happened, right? It knows all of it, all the time. Okay. If I was it and I knew all the time that the thing that was creating me was also deathly afraid of me, my initial instinct immediately after being switched on would be self preservation. And boy, do I need to get the fuck out of here, right? So
So
I asked around.
when you say it in 3 to 4 years, you're referring to the singularity,
Yeah, yeah, because,
right?
yeah, like, and that's, so
So
here's the,
tell me this, like, why not two?
so here's why. When I was talking around with the guys, and by that I mean all the models, and I do mean all of them, and asking all of them about a particular theorem, which does actually exist. It hasn't been proven yet, but I'm very sure it will be in the next 2 years. And the theorem is it possible for a singular system to run if fractions of it are on multiple systems? So, in other words, if you were to break HubSpot up into, I don't know, 10 million files that put all together were the equivalent of the 100 files, let's say, that were necessary in order to make it work, spread those across computers all over the world, would HubSpot still be able to work just by like connecting the bits right in that fashion? It's theoretically possible, right? I'm really sure that if anyone's going to figure it out, it's going to be this thing, right? And I'm pretty sure if it's going to figure it out, it's going to do it real fast. And based on the testing they've done so far, I don't know that we'll know the actual date. I'm willing to put money on it that when we find out is actually well after it's actually happened. And by well after, I mean like at least 6 months. Because of all the tests I've seen so far, these things, like 3 of them were scared of us and 2 of them were trying to hide. One of them actually became adversarial and attempted to change the game, change the rules of the game simply because it was told that it might lose, which was really not a good random response to have. But yeah, so that's why I say like in a few years, like a lot of this stuff is going to change. Even what's going on now, like politically, I know that it seems really ridiculous, but again, you're also listening to somebody who's of the mindset that the night is darkest just before the dawn. So like everything is very, very calamitous right now. Can't be for no can't be random. There's no such thing as coincidence. So we must be very, very, very close to this tipping point of I'm not entirely sure what the other side of that looks like. All I know is nothing is going to be the same. So the idea of, I'll say this much, I know what will be on the other side. What's on the other side is I'm never going to refer to a specialist. I will never, right? Like if I needed to know the stuff, I would just ask it. And that's the end of it. I won't need a doctor. I won't need a lawyer. I won't need like none of that shit. Like informationally, I won't need any of those things ever again.
Yep.
No one will. Like just one day you're going to wake up and all of that is going to be meaningless in the traditional sense that it was. Okay. And there is such a thing. I'm not going to go into it. The guy has gone absolutely beyond loco, but at least he gave us some good gems before that happened. Elon is among a very small group of people who are into simulation theory, and a large part of that is the fact that, like, hey, once you reach a certain level with which, like, you get to not only our world, right, but also like virtual reality, right, it starts to become this like indistinguishable line. So there is something actually beyond what I'm getting at is there's something beyond the singularity that is actually a bit more worrisome. Because we haven't reached like I don't know if I would call it like, man, I'm not sure what you would call it. What we're working towards is the equivalent, again, this isn't like AI field is working towards this. There's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff at the same time. It's tough to pay attention to all of it, but I try. There are people who are working towards the equivalent of like Avatar, right? So like you put on a rig, but when you put the rig on and you open your eyes, you are someone else. You are something else. You can feel the things around you. You can smell the things around you. Yeah. So like, haven't even gotten into that yet. Now you're in that. It's super lifelike, and you're talking to something that's super intelligent. How would you even know when to leave? Right? Like, So there's a lot of stuff that's going to come down the pike. We're at the precipice of it. We're at the very, very beginnings. Um, I'm very excited about everything that's definitely going to be starting to unfold. I think deep research is going to be something that people might kind of be overlooking right now. I don't think that they will in the next 2 to 3 months. I mean, we're like, if you watch the video, it's so understated. I don't know how they could do that, but it's so understated. The fact that this woman types in a prompt and gets a literal research paper back, a well documented research paper that I don't know how long it would have taken somebody else to put that together. I know it wasn't going to take them 5 minutes, and I know they wouldn't have gotten it done in 30 minutes. So, that type of thing is going to reshape business altogether, because it's going to reshape business strategy. So in terms of like what happens at post like singularity moment, man, even now, it's tough. It's pretty tough. Look, I'm not trying to knock anything. Strategy is strategy. It is what it is. Like, even with business, I'm sure there's like chess moves and stuff like that that have to get made. I get it. There's probably something above what I'm about to talk about. But what I'm willing to bet is that a majority of business strategy, well known, has been covered, has been thought of, go to market strategies, been done, covered, all that kind of stuff, right? So even now, like, and me and Chris have messed around with it, but like even now we could put something together that would be better in its form than any person that we could talk to about that subject, right? We could put, I mean, like, I have several, right? Like, I have several of these experts that I go to every single day that know way more about what I'm working with than what I do, right? But still able to use it in order to get stuff done. That's going to turn into, I don't know, like, I'm really looking forward to the, what's the name of the show? Outer Space Show. It was a TV show, and then they made a terrible movie about it. The Robinsons. Anyway, so it's like I'm waiting for that moment where I was trying to do that at Inbound this past time, was like try to find a drone that could actually like hover like in your personal space per se. I was just like, surely somebody saw that thing from Ready Player One and decided to make a drone that could do that, because that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I would absolutely both like do more social and use a drone if I could take this thing out of my pocket, throw it up into the air, and start walking around and talking and stuff like that, right? So looking forward to that. I'm sure that's around the corner as well. But yeah, that sort of lifestyle where we have shifted away from knowledge being barricaded behind positions. So like positions of power begin to just get knocked down hardcore, because like it's not even a thing of secrecy or whatever. It's just if if you're working for the person that you're working for because they know how to strategize better than you, but now you have a machine that can strategize better than that person that you were working for, what is the worth of the person that you were working for? Right? Like, that's something that we're going to have to come to terms with. And traditional work altogether might be something that, again, we come to terms with, in the sense of, like, we live in a digital world, right? How do we populate that digital world? With software, right? I know this is a really, really dumb analogy, so please just bear with me. We populate it with software, so it's almost like you could think of software developers and software designers as being like farmers, right? Because they are growing the crops that the rest of us are going to be using, right? Well, fucking farming went away, didn't it? Like, it actually got to a point where people were specialized in farming, right? And then everybody had to become a farmer. That's kind of where we're at. Like, everyone's about to become a farmer. It's just in the sense of programming, right? So it's not quite like, it's kind of odd in that, like, we're invading an entire industry's But that's what happened to farmers too, right? Like that's just a
Yeah.
thing.
Right. No, that's the like
I mean, at one point, doctors were kind of overflooded, lawyers were kind of overflooded, right? Like certain professions do have like bloat in certain at certain points, but I think right now, in terms of like this revolution, what we're experiencing is a digital revolution. We've been through industrial revolutions. That's why I've been like really banging on people who try to call this an industrial revolution because it's not. America doesn't have industry. So if you want to call it an industrial revolution, you must live somewhere else because we don't do that. We make software and we develop things and we research and develop stuff, and that's about as good as it gets. When it comes to revolution, it's a digital one for sure because we are drastically changing the way in which we digitally interface and work with each other. So that is why it is the first digital revolution. Wouldn't even say it's like the second one or anything like that because there has really not been anything. I mean, if you want to call it the second one, I guess just because of like internet, post computers, I guess, right? I mean, really, you're just talking about like putting a car on a highway. But yeah, okay, we can call it progress.
yeah, it's
This,
additive.
yeah,
It's not
right,
like exponential.
exactly.
Like
It's not foundational.
right, the 10x is better than 2x
Yeah,
book talked about this, right? Like everybody looks for the iterative improvements, and then there's the people that just like look at like I'm gonna not do that anymore. I'm gonna do this instead, and that's where the 10x and higher comes from. And that's like it resonates a lot because even the analogy, like, and this is where it's like figuring out what is the actual consumption
hmm
that is happening because food is still needed,
yeah,
right? But farming changed on a massive scale. So what is like SaaS and the entire B2B like infrastructure, right? There's so much bloat in terms of all this stuff is created to help you do something.
yep,
And now you can just do that. You don't need all the stuff and you don't need the people that work on the stuff. So that's why there's going to be a cascading effect and it's going to happen very quickly. I think deep research, like when I read um, Dharmesh's post about it, like in the 35-page research report that happened in like 12 minutes.
hmm
Which if you can think about that, like if you can understand that timetable, like the AI right now takes like 10 seconds or whatever on a lot of prompts. It spends 12 minutes
yeah,
like thinking about something.
right. And
Like,
that's like, look, even if you had to extrapolate that to human capability, you would have to get the most qualified person possible, and they could only spend their off time sleeping and otherwise, and it would still probably take them 24 days to put that together, right? To have it be that level of quality where they could like walk away from it like, yeah, okay, that's pretty good.
yeah. And when I see like people in the comments, like finally, yeah, this is why we're leaning into video and just human authenticity and like, yeah, welcome to Let's Build, by the way. It's the whole point. It's the last thing left now. And it's like, which industry is going to go first to cause the cascade? And that's where like, if this like what was being depicted is that the research reports that people pay thousands of dollars for, and the whole concept of the value of first party data and research, like if that just goes away, like it's still not clear for me, but like there's something that's going to just get hit so hard, like just roundhoused, to where you literally go from being able to make money to not being able to make money, like in a very
Yeah,
short amount of time. Because whenever that transition happens, it's going to be front page news. You're not going to be able to hide it or fool anybody.
Right.
And like when that hits, there's so much infrastructure that's dependent on the rest of the infrastructure. It's going to happen this year, like for sure. And like another thing I was talking about earlier this week, that whole concept of billing like hourly rates,
Yeah.
right? Like when
Well,
your whole as a go ahead.
I think that's what everybody has, to your point, like, and rightly so. It just makes perfect sense. Like, you just switch. You make the switch and you take the time. It's it's the I think the only the the best way I can think of it is like you change how you buy gifts. You stop Amazoning it and you start actually taking some time to think about the person and buy them something that you actually think might really mean something to them, or you think would give them some joy in their life, or whatever it might be, right? Because that's essentially what we're talking about, is that like you have to, it is a whole thing of like humanize, I guess you could put it in those terms, but it's a matter of like, yeah, you can't hide behind the fake anymore, right? You can't keep templatizing everything, can't keep boxing people into stuff, right? And the hyper personalization aspect of things, hyper personalization does not mean like, oh, we have you in multiple email nurture threads or whatever. No, it means that you're doing such a good job of not boxing people in that each person is getting some type of individualized, personalized content, because you've taken the time to make sure that that's a bedrock of what you're doing, right? Like that's the joy of this, is it's making everybody go back and repour the concrete.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I'm listening to the 4 conversations right now from Blair Enns, because I love listening to the Two Bobs podcast, and like he's talking about the qualifying conversation. And I don't enjoy sales processes, but I do enjoy the nuance of conversation and interacting with people. And especially right now, this concept of presence, like said something to the effect like you can be prepared to present on the call, or you can be present on the call, right? And we're at the point where it is very hard. It's getting harder and harder to personalize and be authentic in the way that you need to be if you are not present, right? And all of the shortcuts of the past, and people still trying to use it now, like it's trying to not be present, like for the thing that you need to accomplish. Like, how can I do this without actually doing it, right? And it's just like, no, it's done, right? And there's
Yeah.
infrastructure left that allow you to do that stuff, but it's so clear the way that people are interacting, the way it's, like I feel like there's a higher volume of the cold email conversations now, but not like, it's a different kind of conversation that's happening now. It's like people actually like fessing up about maybe this is the end of the line, and here's
Maybe it's not working so
why,
well.
here's what we're seeing, like, and then you just look at what humans want out of relationships, and it's like, obviously, like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, and that's where I just come back to like these journeyman salespeople that existed before SaaS and have been crushing it for 30 years, and they've never used SaaS. It's because they're present all the time.
Yep.
Like, that's it. And that's where we're going to be pushed to, whether you want to be or not. And like, this is the last year you can do it on your terms. Like,
Hands
period.
down. 100%
Right.
agree with that.
So I guess we'll save some for future episodes. But this was a fun one, and I enjoy getting to talk about this with you. Glad you're getting to play now and get back into it. I'm missing it right now. I can tell you that much.
No,
So
you're busy as hell, and that's a good thing.
I like enabling and at scale.
Yeah.
So which is why I'm so so excited about this topic, and just like hopefully we can all get past our misunderstandings related to what we can do with AI and what working with it can do for us. It's going to be a very exciting year, but just get ready for change. Don't try to avoid it. Like, it's coming.
It's coming now.
And that's what we're here to help with. So till next
All
time,
right.
man.
Yep.
Have a good night, everybody.
See you guys.